Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hey Anon. I generally do not believe in paranormal shit. I like reading creepy stories and whatever, but I don't really believe that something from the other plane exists. However, there are 3 stories from my life that I can't fucking fully explain to this day. First story is from when I was 6 or 7 years old. I used to sleep in a living room because we shared apartments with my grandpa and grandma. The living room was pretty big, with my sofa, bed in one corner, and big TV stand in the opposite corner. The room is full of shady nooks and crannies, so naturally, as a child, I disliked it. But I didn't have a choice, so I slept there. One evening, at around maybe 10 p.m. or so, I remember it so good because usually I went to bed at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. max. My mother and grandma were in the kitchen next room, so living room was lit a little bit with the light leaking from kitchen. My mom tucked me in, kissed me, and went out of the room. I wiggled around a little bit, pulled my blanket to my chin, turned to the corner with the TV stand, and that's when I saw huge fucking gnome face staring at me under TV stand. I was a scared cat child, so a lot of times I've seen some spooky patterns or whatever, but never such a clear, 3-dimensional, alive face staring at me. That thing looked kind of like Pick related, only with huge eyes, ugly nose with some kind of zits or something, and some small hat, and it had a beard. This face was staring at me and smiling. The kind of smile you will never ever be happy to see. I never screamed because of nightmares or something, but that shit made me scream my fucking soul out. I was shrieking like a banshee. I've never ever encountered this thing again, and I hope that I slipped into a very vivid dream, but my memory tells me that I did not sleep. The second encounter, if you can call it so, happened at the same place, 9 or so years later, when I was 14. I woke up in the middle of the night because I was thirsty. Door to living room was closed, but this door had frosted glass in the middle, so you could get rough idea of what happened behind that door. I saw that light in the kitchen was still on, so maybe my grandma, who loved watching TV until late at night, was still there. I listened closely to that, yet heard no sounds of TV working. Well, someone forgot to turn off the light, so I had to get the water myself and I had to turn off the light. Just as I was ready to get out of bed, I saw someone's silhouette walking into the kitchen, slowly, just like a regular human. I thought it was my mom, so I asked her to bring me water. She didn't respond, but I thought that she heard me and will be bringing water soon. A couple of minutes passes and still nothing. I ask her again, nothing. I assumed that she didn't hear me, so I finally get out of bed and head to the kitchen. I walk into the kitchen, light is on, I pour myself some water, drink it, and I realize there's no one in the room. I clearly saw someone walk into the kitchen, and yet here I am, standing there, alone. Huh, I thought and calmly looked under the table and kitchen sofa. No one, not even my cat is there. That was really weird, but I just went back to sleep. Only in the morning it hit me that I witnessed something so creepy. I don't know how I did not freak out the moment I realized someone disappeared in the kitchen.
I had a gnome living on my farm. Seemed pretty chill at first see. Mom always put out big pots of food for the dogs, mostly meat stuff as we butchered cows. Of course, the dogs would eat their fill then go off to bed, so a gnome would have plenty cooked food to salvage after the dogs were done. One night though, I was maybe 12. Couldn't sleep, my bed was level with the window, so I was just looking outside, thinking about kid shit. The moon was pretty bright, our yard was tree-free except for 2 really old, tall oaks that grew right next to each other. These trees were casting a really dark shadow right outside my window. Looking out the window, motion catches my eye. I look at one spot for a long time and halfway shit myself when a figure stepped out of the shadows. Just like some hearsay, he walked sideways but had his head turned toward where he was going. He stepped along the shadows to our koi pond, and when he got to it, he seemed to bend down, gather water in his hands or maybe a bowl, then stepped back to the tree. Closed my blinds and cried out of fucking sheer terror. Never told anyone when I turned 15, we stopped cattle and started with chickens. Our dog died, so Mom stopped leaving the leftovers outside. We had chicks being raised in a wooden box which was in a closed-in porch. We made sure foxes or hawks, or snakes couldn't get in. A week before they would be ready to put into the actual coup, something killed every one of them in one night. Their bodies were just gone, no blood, only a few feathers. We checked every nook and cranny, there was no way someone or something got in the porch without unlocking the door. My dad was pissed, so angry in fact he got a new guard dog, really cool blue heeler. Leftovers started getting left outside again. Never saw or had any trouble since then. In fact, that year our horse finally conceived for the first time when we thought she was barren. She had 3 babies altogether since that year.
I have 2 stories about gnomes, elves, Huldufolk from my trip to Iceland a few years back. The first came when we were walking around Thingvellir, which is the place where the ancient Icelandic parliament, basically, would convene every year. It's also the meeting point of 2 tectonic plates, so basically where Europe and America meet geologically speaking. Off to one side is a trail with a lot of placards explaining the history of the place, and on the other is a canyon where most tour groups don't go. I decided to walk down the less traveled path on my own, while my family went on the guided tour. It was deserted and I enjoyed the peaceful walk, very beautiful. The only strange thing was that I felt like I was being watched. I figured it was the elves, but I made sure to watch where I was stepping and to act respectful. After what I thought was about 15 minutes, I turned back and retraced my steps. Eventually I ran into my dad, and he was freaked out. I asked him what was wrong. I had been gone for an hour and a half. My perception of time had been vastly distorted. I don't really know what that means, but it was weird. The second story, and much more dramatic, came when we were visiting Dettifoss, which is the highest volume waterfall in the world or some shit. It's the place where the white guy disintegrates and falls into the water in Prometheus. Crazy fast moving, high volume waterfall, just torrential. If you fall in you're fucked basically. So my sister and I were standing on the edge and taking pictures like tourist retards, and she told me, "Scoot over a little bit so I can get the waterfall in the frame." I took a small step to the left and felt myself begin to slip on the wet rocks. Of course, it was about 100 feet straight down into the raging river. I would have been dead, and I felt myself begin to slip backward. And then I felt the strangest thing, as though I was being supported from behind by invisible hands that pushed me forward. To this day I am 99% certain that because of my respectful conduct while exploring the territory of the hidden people in Thingvellir and near the beach in Vik, for those of you who have traveled Iceland, I was saved from certain death by falling into the waterfall. I felt myself begin to slip, and I felt myself be lifted by invisible hands and saved. I hear a lot about the sketchy behavior of gnomes and elves, and I believe it, but I think perhaps the way they treat you depends on the purity of your heart and the respectfulness of your conduct in their presence. Take that as you will.
I live in Washington, and about a week ago my dog and I saw an elf or gnome little person, I don't know what to call it. I live in a small town fairly close to Mount Rainier. the main source of jobs as logging. The whole town is surrounded by Weyerhaeuser tree farms. I don't get home from work until after dark, and it was maybe 10:30 p.m. when I took my dog on a walk. We did our normal route, and when we were coming back along the main street passing the gas station, small engine repair center, he started growling. I look in the direction he is indicating, and there was this tiny human-shaped figure illuminated in the bluish glow from the metal halide porch light. Was slightly shorter than the tire of the trailer it was standing next to. Once it realized, I saw it did this exaggerated slow motion run towards the other side of the trailer, and it vanished mid-step. This was my first paranormal experience, and I honestly don't know what to make of it. My girlfriend doesn't believe me, and said it was probably a raccoon, but it didn't have that same fat body as a coon. I don't know.
Be me, age 12. Cousin of mine who was a born loser gets into meth. Using it, cooking it, selling it. His best friend also gets into meth. Cousin's friend is a behemoth, at least 6'6" and 300 pounds. Cousin is nowhere near that big. One night, behemoth friend breaks down my cousin's door looking for meth. Cousin's wife and baby daughter are both in the house, so cousin puts up a fight. Behemoth friend beats the shit out of my cousin, then attacks cousin's wife. Behemoth is choking her out, about to kill her. Cousin grabs Remington 870 shotgun and fills behemoth friend full of buckshot, killing him. Cops rule it's self-defense, no charges filed. Cousin can't bear to keep the gun that he used to kill his best friend, gives it to my dad. Backstory on dad. Everyone in his podunk town calls him witch killer. I grew up wondering why. Churches wouldn't let him in, say he's cursed. Once every year or two, Dad would grab his 30.06, take off in his truck, or on an ATV or horseback, and go hunting alone. Before Dad went hunting, there would always be visitors at the house. Usually black guys or natives, almost never any white guys. Dad never returned with any game, but said he got what he was after. He never let me go with him on these hunts. After Dad would get back, the same visitors as before would show up and bring food and stuff for us. Always found that odd. One day, Dad gives me his Remington 870 and tells me it will save my life a few times. Don't know what to make of that, but hey, free shotgun. It actually does save my life. Twice. That was before this story though. We'll tell those stories if anyone is interested. Anyway, I marry my first wife in college. We have 3 kids before I'm out of med school. She turns out to be a crazy bitch. Divorce, and I win custody of kids by miracle. Few years later, meet Cutie Pie on MMO. She's a Yankee and a city girl, but she's a trad girl. She's getting divorced, also has 3 kids, and is a bit younger than me. Pole would not approve of me taking step kids, but fuck them. I apply for a job at a hospital and they hire me. Hospital itself is about 50 miles from the town my new girl lives in. We've met and are officially dating at this point. Decide to get married and I move to her Yankee state. Bring my guns with me, including the Remington 870. Get married to new waifu. She loves to garden, loves to cook and sew, has master's degree in computer programming. Complete opposite of my crazy bitch ex who had a master's degree in sitting on her fat ass. Rent a house in town where the hospital is, but more out in the country. Need big house for 6 kids aged 4 to 14. House has big woods behind it, also owned by the same landlord. Landlord says I can hunt there. Fuck yeah. PNG. House also has an old wooden shed in the backyard. Landlord says not to go in it. New waifu sees me doing what she calls crazy bumpkin stuff in the woods before I go hunting. I'm asking permission from the trees, letting them know I mean them no harm, etc. Stuff Dad taught me. 2 weeks after moving in, I have rough night in the Can't go into too many details due to HIPAA. But girl of about 8 dies and I have to call it. Have to tell kid's mom, we did all we could do. Mother screams at me, you killed my baby. Shit bothers me. Get off work at midnight and go home. Try to clear my head by going out the back door to have a smoke. Waifu hates me smoking, but it's either smoking, drinking, or taking Xanax. Everyone else I know in the medical field is on Xanax or drinks heavily. That includes other doctors, nurses, lab techs, rad techs, even the janitorial staff. Hear rustling in the garden. I look over and see a pair of eyes staring at me, about 2.5 feet off the ground. Feels wrong, man. I'm always armed. This particular time I had my Taurus judge on me. I unholster it and fire a shot at the eyes, thinking it might be a bobcat. Eyes and dark shape skitter into the shed. The door was open. Waifu comes running out, asking, "What's going on?" Tell her about eyes. She gets a flashlight. We look around the garden, no tracks of any kind. We try to open the shed, but the door won't budge. Must be rusted shut, Anon. You had a hard night, you're tired. Let's get some sleep. Agree it's probably the stress. I'll talk to a friend of mine tomorrow and get some Xanax. Next day, I have the day off. Visit another doctor at the hospital and get a script for Xanax. Never taken it before. My sleep schedule is all fucked up because normally I work from noon to midnight. 3 a.m. rolls around. I'm wide awake and looking out the kitchen window into the backyard as I get glass of water. Took some Xanax, but shit doesn't seem to be doing anything for me except making me thirsty. Did I mention that I'm red, green color blind? Looking out window. Just outside the reach of the porch light, I see a little humanoid thing. Fuck. The Xanax is making me hallucinate. I can't make out any features, but I can tell it's got on a shirt, pants and a pointy hat. Looks like a garden gnome kind of, has a long beard. Thing sees me, stops moving, and stares at me for a full minute. Then, it raises both hands and gives me a double shot of middle fingers. I laugh. Xanax might be making me hallucinate, but at least it's funny. Creature is not amused by my laughing. It turns around, drops its pants and moons me. I'm watching what looks like a garden gnome wiggle its ass at me. Laughing a whole lot harder now. The thing does not like that at all. As fast as I can blink, it's up to the window. I jump back, crashing into a shelf full of jars that Waifu has canned, knocking everything over. Waifu comes out to see what the ruckus is about. All I can say is, no more Xanax. Next day, go into work at noon as usual. Regular day, mostly meth heads wanting pain pills and old people falling. A couple of kids with fevers. Get home the next night and lay in bed beside Waifu. Hear a loud thunk against back door. Jump up. Grab the handgun from the nightstand. Smith & Wesson SD9VE. Waifu is up as well. Grabs Ruger LCP from her nightstand as I'm headed to the back door. Open it. I start to step outside when I see that I'm about to step on the biggest fucking snake I've ever seen. Sumbitch is a timber rattler, 8.5 feet long easily. I fucking hate snakes from a previous encounter. When my Remington 870 saved my life. Mag dumped 17 rounds hollow point into that bastard. Change magazines. About to dump next mag into the snake when Waifu grabs my arm. Anon, it's dead. I hear giggling. What the fuck is that? I say, scanning the yard. From the garden, I hear Waifu's voice say, Anon, it's dead. Then hear my own voice say, what the fuck is that? Aim SD9 at garden and tell Waifu, get in the house. Now, the same line as before is repeated from the garden. Waifu bolts inside. I look and see the same creature from the night before in garden, smiling. Ugly, Brit Banjistan teeth. Waifu didn't see it. Next day, I call Dad and tell him about what's been happening. Dad says the snake was probably a gift, likely from a fae. Says I need to give a gift back. Tells me to leave a glass bottle of milk at the door of the shed. I don't want Fi thinking I'm an ungrateful bastard. Leave milk at the shed door before going to work. When I get home, I sit down at the computer because everyone else is asleep. Hear the sound of glass shattering against the back door. Waifu wakes up, getting pissed now about being woken up so much. I open the door and see the smashed milk bottle on back porch. Waifu looks out the kitchen window. We both see a garden gnome looking thing standing there, looking angry as hell. She screams. I shut the back door, lock it, and move over to window. Waifu is frozen in fear. I snap her out of it and tell her, go get my shotgun. Shotgun is in the gun safe, loaded with slugs. Don't want the stepkids getting a hold of it. She comes running back with the Remington 870 and hands it to me. I open the window about 2 inches. Can hear the garden gnome talking about all the things he is going to do to us and the kids. Says he's going to slit my throat, says he'll do worse things to Waifu and the kids. I'm pissed now. I put the barrel of the Remington 870 through the window, aim right between that motherfucker's eyes. He's not moving and doesn't seem scared one bit of a 12 gauge being pointed at him. I pull the trigger, my aim is off a bit and I hit the cocksucker in his left eye. Little bastard falls back, holding his left eye. Lets out the most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life. Rack Remington. Get ready to shoot again. Fucker gets up, still holding his left eye, and runs off before I can get another shot. I hear the shed door slam shut. Call Dad the next morning, tell him about the incident. He asks one question. What color was its hat? Hang on, Dad. Hey Waifu. What color was its hat? Red. Fuck. Dad almost screams into the phone. My dad has never used a swear word, that I've heard, in my life. Never really raised his voice at all. Listen to me very carefully, Inan. If you were supposed to work today, call in sick. Go into town and find a wrought iron cross. Take a spent 12 gauge shell and find one with pieces that will fit into the shell. Buy the cross, bring it home, and cut as many slugs as you can from the cross. Use a hacksaw, do not use a cutting torch. Reload some 12 gauge shells with those slugs. As many as you can. Keep your 870 with you at all times when you're home. Do not let Waifu or the kids go into the backyard today. Buy a few bags of salt and pour salt at every doorway and every window of your house. It can't cross a salt barrier. I ask Dad, why don't I just pour salt across the door to the shed? It's going to get out of the shed no matter what. You don't want it getting in your house. This next part is important. Do not be outside when the sun sets. And keep a fire going in your fireplace. Do not let the fire go out. You need the protection of a hearth fire. I'm leaving in 20 minutes. I'm heading over with my 30.06. I'll try to get there before night falls. If I'm not there by then, and you see it, shoot it with the slugs. Dad lives over 8 hours from me. Anything else I can do, Dad? He answers, yeah, pray. Do everything Dad says to do. I'm able to make 5 slugs from the wrought iron cross after doing everything else he said to do. Sun starts to set. Dad hasn't shown up. Call him. He says he's stuck in traffic an hour and a half outside where I live. He hauled ass to get there. Sun has set. Porch light goes on. I have a plan for this fucker, though. Waifu is in the kitchen looking out the window. I'm in a different room with the window open. Shotgun pointed out the window. No lights on, being as quiet and still as I can be. As soon as it's full dark, the shed door slams open, and I see it come out. Can't get a good shot on it as it's moving too fast. It gets to the edge of the light and starts yelling. Inan, come out and fight like a man. The thing calls me every name in the book, but it doesn't step any closer. It's trying to bait me outside. I aim right for its head. Then I remember the things it said about me and my family, and I aim a little lower. It still hasn't seen me, it just sees waifu. I pull the trigger, the 870 barks, and I shoot the sumbitch right in the balls. It doubles over on the ground, holding its balls and rolling around, screaming like the devil and swearing in several languages, some of which I even understand. I go to kitchen, out the back door, shotgun trained on it the whole time. It's still writhing around holding its balls. I get 2 steps away from it and pull the trigger again, this time aiming for its heart. Damn thing shatters like glass and the glass melts into the ground. All the grass is dead where it was, but it's gone. Dad pulls up not 5 minutes later, runs into the backyard with his 30.06 drawn and shouldered. I got it, Dad. The look of relief on his face is priceless. He seems to get 10 years younger when he sees the dead grass in an oval shape. I ask Dad why he wanted me to use slugs from the Remington instead of bullets in my AR or bigger hunting rifles. Dad explains that since this gun was used to kill in self-defense, and has saved my life twice before, it's attached to me and has a purpose of protection. That's how I was able to hurt it. That, plus the iron slugs, are what killed it. Dad and I torch the shed, tell the landlord that the kids built a campfire and it got out of hand. No more trouble in this house since then.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.